Finally this Sunday, some analysis with us today. Chris Bigelow, known as Genghis Conn, who runs the well-read political blog ctlocalpolitics.net. Chris, nice to see you back here again.
Thank you.
So what do you think of Roger Pearson? You covered both the Lamont-Lieberman battle back in 2006 and now what's shaping up to be a Pearson-Dodd battle.
Well, the kind of things that I'm hearing Mr. Pearson talk about, these are the kinds of things that a lot of people, particularly independents, some Democrats, a lot of Republicans are saying about Senator Dodd. He covered some of the highlights, certainly talking about Senator Dodd going to Iowa, talking about his tenure as the chair of the Banking Committee. I think that the kinds of concerns that he raises are the kinds of concerns that a lot of people are having. Whether or not he's going to be the one who can, as a Democrat, challenge Senator Dodd and be successful, hard to say at this point. I mean, we're a long way away.
You know, it seems the difference between 2006 is that, well, I mean, first of all, Lieberman's approval rating was much higher than Dodd's is right now. But the Democrats seem to have deserted Lieberman in 2006, where the independents were behind him. And here we have the Democrats still, for the most part, behind Senator Dodd, and the independents have deserted him. And in the primary, you have to get the Democrats.
Exactly, and that's why the situation existed where you could have somebody like Lamont come in and actually win a primary, because yes, Lieberman's numbers were relatively high, but the people who didn't support him were activist Democrats, the kind of people who can organize and win a primary. And that's why Ned Lamont was able to be successful. The people who are angry at Chris Dodd right now don't tend to be activist Democrats. They tend to be independents or Republicans. Some Democrats are pretty angry at him right now, but it's hard to know whether or not there are enough Democrats angry at Chris Dodd to actually have somebody make a run at him in a primary.
They also seem willing to just say, well, if he retires, great, he did a wonderful job, let's get another Democrat in so we can hold this seat. Is that what you're hearing as well?
I hear that a lot. I think that would be the perfect scenario for the Democrats if Chris Dodd said, well, I think I'm going to retire and maybe walk into an ambassadorship somewhere or go off into the sunset, end of a brilliant career, whatever else. I think that a lot of Democrats would be very happy and very relieved about that, because then they know that they would be able to hold the seat. They could run somebody like Richard Blumenthal or Chris Murphy or somebody, and they would have a great shot at winning.
And as this thing progresses, let's say that we're getting close to primary time and Pearson's ahead in the polls, let's say. Do you think that Blumenthal might jump in?
It's possible.
And say, hey, this might be my only chance.
That's right. I think that that's absolutely possible. If the conditions look favorable, and we know that Richard Blumenthal has had his eye on a Senate seat for some time.
He's not going to let anyone else win it.
Right. And he may not want to wait until 2012 and Joe Lieberman. So yeah, he might decide this is a great time to get in, but I don't think he'd be the only one. I think that if polls come out showing some Democrat doing very well against Chris Dodd, you will see a lot of people start to have an interest in this race.
So we had some campaign financial figures released this week. Tell us what you learned.
Well, what I thought was interesting is that we didn't get much money from Rob Simmons. I thought that he would have raised at least something. Whereas it turned out, he says, well, we didn't really raise anything of significance, and it was kind of a no report almost.
What do you make of that?
I find it a little odd, and it kind of reminds me of when Rob Simmons announced his campaign. He didn't have a website ready to go. He didn't seem like he was quite ready, and that's kind of what I thought about this right now. Maybe he wasn't quite set up for it now. I don't think it's bad necessarily. I think it's going to be a long campaign, and I'm sure that Rob Simmons will raise a decent amount of money. But it just seems like I thought he would get off to a faster start.
Yeah, Sam Caligiuri's already in, and he seems to be going after the younger voters with Facebook and Twitter and things like that.
Yes.
And then we get the two moneymakers, Orchuli and Foley, who it looks like they're going to get in because they have access to some big coin.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they got in. So then we'd have a four-way race. And right now, I think it would be a contest between Caligiuri and Simmons. I kind of see this. It might break down along regional lines even. Simmons is very strong in the eastern half of the state. Caligiuri is from Waterbury. Both of them aren't too well known outside their respective areas.
And Senator Dodd's raised over $1 million so far?
Yes. And that is, it's impressive, and I think a lot of people are saying, well, that shows he's not going to retire, that he's not going to just give up here. And I agree with that. I don't think that he is going to give up. I don't think that he will retire.
But this could be an expensive race for him.
Absolutely, it could be. It's going to be an expensive race for everybody. Rob Simmons says he'll need $5 million, I think it was what he said, to run an effective campaign against Senator Dodd, and Senator Dodd will probably raise 3 times that, if not more.
Yeah, $5 million seems low.
It might be.
You know, to win that. Let's talk about the governor's race. Money raised there. What does it look like?
Right now, Dan Malloy is actually leading the pack. He's got over $100,000. Susan Beisowitz is not too far behind. Jim Amon has about $50,000 or less. Interestingly, Jody Rell does not have all that much money raised. Now, this is not quite the same situation because we do have public financing, and almost everybody, except for Jim Amon, is now just raising money for their exploratory committees. So the way that it's working is a little different right now.
Yeah.
So it's not quite the same thing as just saying, well, they're raising this much money for that campaign. They're just raising money for an exploratory committee, and they will eventually all opt into, I assume, the public financing system.
And Amon's the only one who's the officially announced candidate.
That's right.
You know, the governor certainly is not announced. Although with these high approval ratings, I think everyone thinks she's going to run. She doesn't have to announce now.
That's right. And even though she hasn't raised much money, everyone expects that she will be able to raise whatever she needs, because she does have such high approval ratings if she decides to get into the race.
You know, briefly, some of the Democrats running for, governor, some of the folks who work for them are like, we may get dismissed again if there's a big Senate race like last time.
It's absolutely possible. It's kind of the same situation as 2006. You've got a really popular governor.
Yeah. The forgotten race.
Yeah, and a Democrat who may not be all that strong or not all that visible, depending on who runs, who knows. But
Chris Dodd taking all the attention. All right, Chris Bigelow from ctlocalpolitics.net, known as Genghis Khan. Thanks so much for being with us today. I'm Dennis House. We'll see you next Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow night on Eyewitness News. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody.